Speaking about overcoming tribalism, there was a pretty famous moment during Gamergate when you actually married an anti-Gamergate person.
Yeah. Yeah, it happened because, to be honest, again, I I picked a side by participating in the operations. But to be honest, I always had a relatively okay relationship with many that were against Gamergate. I was I was always recognized as a person that speaks well and logically and is not just trying to earn points or stuff like that. And I also someone that when we're seeing something that was not okay on my side was not staying silent. So yeah, we started talking. We had a smaller group. I think you mentioned it before, like the GG After Dark.
Yes.
And yeah, we basically found out that we were both in relationships that weren't really working, and now we've been married for 7 years.
Perhaps it would be better if I asked your partner about this, but the Gamergate After Dark project, this was sort of an attempt to bring both sides together, you could say. An attempt to
I
get the
mean,
people to talk about something other than Gamergate for a minute and just recognize each
you
other as people.
you make it sound like intentional or part of the conversation, but really what it is that in against Gamergate, the debate subreddit, uh, that was pretty much a community where we were discussing and where we're fighting with each other and everything, but some people wanted to hang out without that, and we did. That's all there is, though. It's just people that met on Reddit, and I don't think that the fact that it came out from Gamergate was particularly relevant, as in the discussion there was not even there. As a matter of fact, and I've been uninvolved for a while on that, but I am still in the GG After Dark Discord now, and I'm a moderator there, technically, so that's still a thing.
Strange, nobody invited me. Gosh.
Well, yeah, because you were not part of it, and it's like 12 people that know each other. It's not an open invite, has never been, to be honest.
Yeah, I did post there a little bit, but
When it was on Slack.
oh
Oh, no,
no
no,
no
no.
back
You
on
mean the
the
Reddit?
back on
Reddit.
the Reddit.
Oh, okay, okay. So on Reddit, yes, there was GG After Dark, but to be honest, it was dead. And it was mostly dead because, again, before it was on Slack and now it's on Discord, people basically created this community and we were talking to each other on that. So it was kind of dead on arrival, the Discord, like the subreddit. Like it wasn't really active.
Yeah, I know it. Well, I don't know if that's entirely fair. It seemed like it was pretty active for like the first couple months.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Here's what happened. What happened is that we opened that. Some people came in, and then they opened GGFreeForAll, and everybody went there to shitpost. That's what happened.
That's exactly what happened. I remember that. Well, it's so funny too because you say it wasn't like a deliberate thing, but After Dark and Free for All were almost polar opposites of each other. One was this sort of you know it it seemed like it was this attempt to bring people together from across the aisle. After Dark was,
Yeah.
and then Free for All was blood sports. Come here and duke it out. No rules.
So here's the thing. I cannot say for sure because I'm not the one that opened it. But I get the feeling that GG Free for All was more of a um, was almost a dare from certain people that were mostly on the anti side, because people in GamerGate constantly asked for a place that was not heavily moderated. And basically, they went, "Oh yeah, okay, we're going to do it, and we're going to fucking shit on each other all day." And that's, I think, how it was born. I also was supposed to be one of the head moderators in GG discussion. Honestly, GG discussion is something that was born from me and Bushfluff at the beginning. When we left GG with GG against GamerGate, actually. Um, because the last time that I left it as moderator, I kind of killed it. And that was the second time. But yeah, the whole discussion in against GamerGate kind of was a mess. There were giant problems with the moderation, and nobody wanted to make it a place where the opposite side had a say, basically.
Well, you and I are both very heavily invested in those communities against GamerGate and the
Yep.
other, and its, I guess, successor GG discussion.
Well,
Um,
honestly, GG discussion. What happened is that uh, Bashfluff, in my opinion, jumped the gun. Opened it. Wanted me as a moderator, but called a whole bunch of people, and to be honest, some that I was like, I spent 3 years fighting with what was his name, HokesOne.
yeah.
Uh, and I found myself with the moderator team that I felt was the hoax one of the other side, and I was no. I'm sorry, no. I if we want to to have a place where we're going to be vaguely civil, that's fine, but I don't think that this is gonna happen here. And I don't want to spend more years on this. And to be honest, again, I felt like at that point the conversation was dead. I I can suspect some of the things that are conversation that are still hanging around in the GamerKid discussion, like all the things about like, for example, lately there's discussions about Castlevania Nocturne, how they changed characters, how there's forced diversity. I don't give a fuck. I'm a big fan of Castlevania. Did I like that they changed the law? No. Do I have to be mad about it? No. I enjoyed it. I was okay. There's a bunch of things that I didn't enjoy, and I don't watch them. That's fine. Like, I just don't have the energy or the intention to be like this perpetually mad person that rages against media. Like, it's fine. If I don't like something, I don't watch it, and that's it.
Well, perhaps to your surprise, I'm much the same way. I don't view
Mm.
myself as a culture warrior, though perhaps
Yeah,
a little bit I did engage in that stuff a little bit back in the day. I'm sure you recall we had some
yeah,
disagreements.
absolutely. The funny part about the culture war, and between the questions there were like, oh, do you think this was the first battle of the culture war? No, because if I was treating it like the culture war, I was clearly on the other side. My main thing, I feel like there's a group of people like me. As a matter of fact, we made, let me see if I can find it. I remember that I made a subreddit called AGGRogues, and it's a secret subreddit, but basically was all the moderators of AGG that were not uh, Hoax and other people like that. And we were discussing, okay, what the fuck do we want to do? Because the moderation team is fucked. But there's a bunch of people, Collision NZ, Quite Thinker, Unconfidence, Paladin Lost. And I think those were the people that I was more aligned with. And almost all of them are not American. And that was significant because one of the issues that, like, the issues that people had, for example, with Anita Sarkeesian and her examination, I disagree with what she has to say. But it's okay to disagree on the internet, okay? If I were to do a war of everyone that has an opinion that I do not agree with on the internet, I would be at it all day, every day. It's like, it's impossible to. It's just people were so unable to accept that someone might have a different idea. And also, there was a lot of criticizing games or content based on a very American perspective, especially when it comes to objectification and stuff like that. And most of those games are Japanese. They have a different culture. It's okay if you don't embrace it, but they don't have to change for you. I've read lately a review of Dragon's Crown Pro, which is kind of a re-edit, and they were shocked that they didn't change the art style. The art style is the selling point. They were saying, why is the marketing team not stopping them? Because the artists own the software house. They're the bosses. Nobody's telling them to change shit. Like, people don't have to change for your opinion. Your only option is, I don't like this, I'm not going to buy it. And that's it.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
there's
Good.
but there's always been a lot of people that are either this offends me, so it shouldn't exist. A lot of people that are like, oh, this is forced inclusivity. And it's like, forced by who? There's nobody that is forcing anyone to do anything. There are some companies that really care about backlash and marketing, and they do everything they can to be absolutely in line with what marketing says and try to not bother anyone. And to be honest, they kind of suck. Like, I'm talking about companies like Ubisoft and Electronic Arts, like, that try to go with what sells, even if it's completely soulless. And everybody else, if they change something or if they included something, it's not because they were forced by a mob, it's because they felt that way. And sometimes they feel like that way after backlash. Like, there's definitely some people that hear backlash from someone who says, oh, the cast is not diverse enough, and they think, oh, you know what, you're right. Let's make something. But people are not bullied into self-censoring or stuff like that. They either want to maintain the peace anyway because that was always the selling. Like, they are always trying to make things as little controversial as possible and do everything that the market says, or they do it because they agree.
Yeah, I'm
I
good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just I think we're very much in agreement here. Like I am perfectly fine with people criticizing games and expressing viewpoints, and if the developers want to listen to that viewpoint, like, hey, look, that's an interesting point. I hadn't considered that. I think that's 1,000% fine. But do you think there was anything to these mobs originally from the far right, before GamerGate, and then it became like the far left, um, trying to use shaming tactics, seemingly, where they'd get thousands of people on Twitter to all DM and tweet at and email developers demanding they take stuff out, like change the cover, things like this. And then also
I
the
mean,
right wing later did the same thing too, with like the forced diversity quote unquote stuff. I
I
was opposed
mean,
to all of that.
absolutely, but it's nothing new. Like, first of all, it's definitely culturally American because we don't have a lot of that in any shape or form outside. Like, America always had changed cover art and stuff like that because apparently people cannot handle it here. Uh, but also, you had the satanic panic in the 80s. As in, that's nothing new. There's always been mobs of people on either side of every spectrum that were just unreasonable and wanted all the culture to change the way that they wanted. And they also never won and never will, to be honest. Like, again, it's a few people with a blog asking people that are selling millions of copies of their IP to change it because they're offended in their blog. It's not gonna happen. Like, why would they? They're selling millions of copies of whatever they're doing.
Well, they did though, right? They did change the cover of the
Oh yeah,
comic
they
book.
change,
They did. They did do the Pillars of Eternity controversy. They did force them to change the joke. Like they
but
were successful for a while.
but here's the thing. Like, it's not really forced. When people change a cover is because it's very low effort for the payback that you get. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to change the cover and I'm going to silence these morons. It's not, oh no, we need to cave in, otherwise we're ruined. Nobody's ruined if they don't do that. It's just easier sometimes and they don't give a fuck about doing it. You know? Like, there's definitely an element on both sides. There's definitely an element where the people that are the craziest are also the loudest, and some people feel like they have to police themselves to be accepted. But but by but what I can see, that's more of a fear than an actual concern, as in I never saw anyone go against those mobs and paying the price for it, you know? As in, I have yet to see a video game that got controversies from some lunatics, and then those lunatics won because they didn't cave in and the game is ruined.
Do
It's
you?
just
Oh, good.
no, no, go.
You mentioned like the satanic panic in the 80s. I think there's like a very much a through line where I agree. This is something that happens throughout history. There's always these moral panics that come up every decade or two, where it's some new thing, rock and roll, it's metal
Yeah,
music, it's rap music, it's Dungeons and Dragons, it's video games, it's comic books, it's whatever. And they do always lose, but I think the way I saw it, and maybe you'll disagree, I don't know, but the way I saw it is like they lost because people were willing to stand up to them.
I mean, yes and no, as in, yes, probably they lost because people were willing to stand up for it, but the truth is that people always stood up for it, and not necessarily in a loud way, as in, it didn't, like, when people were burning, like, records of rock and roll, that didn't stop rock and roll, and standing up to it was not that complicated. You was just going to a store and buying your record. and other people were going to the store but buying the record to burn it, and they still paid the artist. Like, it was just dumb. And most protests of that way are dumb because they're not effective. Until you stop people from actually enjoying and buying the things that they do, you cannot be effective. And they cannot do that because everybody that is a fan of what they're criticizing consider them assholes. Like, quite frankly.
Some
So
people would say, "Oh, good."
yeah, yeah.
Some people would say that when they went after video games in the '90s and the 2000s, the games press stood up and was like, "Hey, look, these Christian Bible thumpers who want to take away our games are full of shit." But that when this same sort of thing happened, but from a left-wing perspective, a lot of the games journalists decided that they were going to be silent on it, or even in some cases side with the censorious mob. Like there was a Vice Waypoint article, for instance, where they said that Cindy was one loose thread away from indignity in Final Fantasy 16, and that he thought that the game developer would have seen the outrage and changed it, but no. So he criticized the game because they didn't cave to the mob.
Yeah, yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. Uh, there's a lot of complaints like that, and there's always been, and people generally do not cave unless they agree and accept the argument, and most of the times they don't. The game journalists maybe, like, first of all, I feel even at the time it's difficult to talk about game journalists like they're a monolith because there were people that were not. As a matter of fact, it became a lot polarized because of that. Um, who was the escapist? I think
Yeah,
was one of those that were actually not like that and was praised by GamerGate, but really they were just voicing their own opinion. But most importantly, um, game journalism as a written form was already on the way down, while a lot of YouTube reviews and like the YouTuber was raising up as a figure, and a lot of YouTube was on the other side. It's just a different kind of media that followed a different kind of opinion. And but honestly, there was in different doses, but there were both opinions on both sides, as in there were a lot of videos on YouTube that were on quote unquote our side of the discussion, and there were a lot of people that had, like, I remember Forbes writing stuff about Gamergate
Eric
that
Kane.
was, yeah, Eric Kane, yeah, like people remember more clearly the things that they're raging against. And I don't want to say that it was balanced because, yeah, definitely there was an imbalance. And again, there was a whole mailing list with people that were like discussing these things. So it was somewhat aligned and they were getting into it together. The whole articles gamers are dead that appeared on a whole bunch of publications. Like there was definitely some kind of concerted effort, but at the same time, that wasn't the whole conversation. And various people had different opinions. The main thing that didn't really have much of a different opinion is how Gamergate was seen. But to be honest, I didn't expect it to be seen in a different way because it was very lawless. Like everybody was in the way that they wanted to. There was a bunch of trolls that were in Gamergate or outside. They were people that were just looking at the margin and just trying to shitpost. Uh, so I didn't expect people to see Gamergate favorably. What I expected is to create the kind of chaos that led people, exactly like it happens with video games when someone criticizes it, to say, okay, should we do some disclosure just to pacify a little bit of this mess? And a lot of people said yes. They didn't say, oh, because of GamerGate, we're doing this and we're caving in. Absolutely. They would never say it. But it was easier for them to start to take things seriously instead of doubling down at a certain point. And it worked.